It's the Terrible at Fishing radio show on Gold Country Radio. Here's your fishing expert and host, Michael Ruffino.
Welcome back, everybody. Terrible at Fishing. I know, Terrible at Fishing. That's a funny name for a show. Especially for you to tune in and find out about fishing. I am the expert at being terrible. So, this week, beautiful week, starting to get the bug. I went to the Fly Fishing Club's meeting on Tuesday, and we had a biologist there for ODFW. His name was Bill Tenniswood, and he had a wonderful presentation on all the rivers and not all the lakes, but we're going to talk about, because I did ask about them, and the creeks and stuff like that. His suggestions on where to fish, and some of the fish counts. You're all probably wondering about salmon and steelhead. So we're going to be covering all of that in today's show. And I am doing this before I forget everything. I did take a picture of all of his slides. So I'm looking on my little phone here, although phones are not little anymore. And I'm going to try to refresh my memory of all the things that he mentioned. So let's talk a little bit about some of the simple lakes around here before we get into other areas like Lake County. So, I mean, I'm not even sure. Lake County's not like far east from us, I do believe. And he made it sound like everything was really, 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 really far away. Yeah, okay, it's east of Klamath. So it's pretty far. But we're going to talk a little bit about Lake County, as well as Klamath County. But let's talk about Lake of the Woods. Around the perimeter is it has perimeter thaw, so from right along the banks, and then you've got sort of an open area to the ice. So, but it still has ice out on the majority of the lake. Fish Lake has more open water, but still a lot of ice on Fish Lake. So if you want to do some bank fishing, you probably can get some fish off the banks at both of those lakes right now. He gave me some wonderful information about Gerber Lake and Thompson Reservoir. Now, Thompson Reservoir is one of those that they've been stocking really, really heavy. And they expect a lot of great fishing at Thompson Reservoir. Also, over at Gerber Lake, too. Gerber Lake is another great lake that will spill over this year. And, the crappie are really, really good there. I mean, it's a great crappie lake. To be honest, there are two lakes I like to go crappie fishing at, which is Emigrant Lake in Ashland and Gerber Lake over here. If you go south of Gerber Lake, there's Willow Valley. Willow Valley will spill over too. But I happen to like Willow Valley, but if you go there, you really need to understand that lake a little bit in order to catch some really big bass. And it's a great big bass lake. But there are certain areas of that lake that are fantastic for big bass. So we do have some really good fishing just around here. Now, they're actually spawning. The bass are actually in spawn right now over in Bonanza on Lost Creek. Lost River. Lost Creek. I always get them confused. But anyway, that in the hot springs there. So there's some really good fishing that's going to be hitting there pretty good as soon as the beds are, as soon as they spawn. So it's really a fantastic time. Like I said, we're starting to get the itch, aren't we? So let's go over some of the things that that I learned this week at the Fly Fishing Club's presentation. So at Lake County, which is east of us, come to find out, it's pretty far away. But when we had our droughts from 20 to 22, it pretty much dried up everything. So in 23 and 20 through this year, last few years, we've had really good water, above average water years, from 23 to 25. So some of the eastern reservoirs are, I don't even know what a rain shadow is, but he mentions they're in the rain shadow. Some of you probably know what that is. So Warner Pond is one of those ponds that is doing really well right now for trout, and it is a very good pond. They and also the Duncan Reservoir. The good news is the bullhead, because of the drought, it had dried it up. All the bullhead that people have planted in there are gone, so you don't have to worry about them. It was spilling over in 2023, and it's spilling right now. And they were stocked with fingerling and 10-inch trout in 23 and 24. So the fishing there should be hitting pretty good. Then there's Heart Lake. Heart Lake in 2022 was treated with rhododendron and to remove all those brown bullhead catfishes. And rhododendron is something that is common. It removes the oxygen out of the water, but it comes back. After the rhododendron does its work, it really comes back and becomes a very good eco environment for food for the fish. And in 1955, Lake of the Woods was treated with it because of the suckerfish, and it killed everything in Lake of the Woods in 55. And look at Lake of the Woods now. It's my favorite and probably one of the best fishing holes you could go to. It's been stocked with fingerlings, eagles, and trophies of rainbow trout, and to jumpstart that fishery. So, and then there's Heart Lake. Heart Lake is fishing very good right now. And boy, he showed me a picture of something like, I think it's the saddest, biggest, fattest rainbow trout over at Big Rock Reservoir. Now, Withers Lake looks like a really cute lake. I got to check this lake out. It's probably too far for me to go, but Withers Lake, it looks adorable. And it is you can't, with Withers Lake, you can't take a gas engine on that. So it's got to be an electric or a float tube or something like that. Blue Lake is doing really well, and you want to use those Blue Lake damsels. They showed the inside of one fish. Evidently, they like these little boogers. Cottonwood Meadows is hitting really big trout right now. The brook trout and rainbow trout over at Cottonwood Meadows. But April and May is the best time to be fishing them, and then October, November. Electric motors only, if you have a motor at all. So if you're fly fishing, use minnow patterns, midges, and damsels. Excuse me. Chewaucan River is doing very well too. And he was really stressing Site 4, and I think it was Site 8. Let me look. Yeah. Site 4 and Site 8 were really the game changers on the Chewaucan River. So he gave us a lot of really good pointers there. Places to fish in 2025 in Lake County is the Warner Pond, Cottonwood Meadows, Heart Lake, Duncan Reservoir, and Rivers End Reservoir, although there was a trick to get in there because that's private property, but you got to go upriver off of 33. And he says that largemouth bass is hitting really good there. I'm going to have to check this place out. I think we're going to get a little adventurous this season. And, I want to do more river fishing. So the boat won't be used every time I go out. Although, it is an inflatable. So, maybe I'll throw a kayak in there or something like that, and maybe we hit some of these places. So now black drake hatches, that's what you want to use on, the Williamson's River. The Williamson's is one of those spots and that you want to be using black drake hatches. Also the Sprague is doing really well, and the Wood River has gotten some really big old giant beasts out of it. Now he did show it's a strange picture, you got to see it. Sun Creek brook trout. He shows this giant brook trout with a rat in it, or a vole. Yeah, he ate it. Dude, I did not know trout ate rats. I know my boys, the largemouth bass, do. But this beast, I got a picture of it right here. He ate a rat. They got little mouths. He ate a whole vole. Anyway, evidently you could catch those babies on those. So, if you want to throw out a rat, or something that looks like it, you could do that. All right, so he had this big chart, and this is the spawning. They got spawning year, and then fish counts. So, the only area that was really in the positive was Crystal Creek, and its peak count was 357 at Crystal Creek. So it was the only area that was actually up in their fish count. Now there are some honorable mentions, Crooked Creek and its tributaries. The total red count there is 445. It's about normal. And then we had the Wood River. Peak count was 242, as well as the Sprague River and Comaquan Springs. Peak count was about 251. So, again, not up, but not bad for those rivers. The Williamsons had a peak count at the moment 98. So, the lower Williamson is one of my favorite places for red-banded. You could catch some big, I have a video on Terrible at Fishing of me catching a 21.5-inch red band in the Williamsons. And it's a fantastic, beautiful, 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 beautiful fish. So, but the Williamsons, I think it opens up on Memorial Day, so Indy 500 hits, so does that. And but if you're indigenous, you can fish it whenever you want. Remember too, Williamson's only allows a single prong hook. They changed that a couple of years ago, and treble hooks are outlawed there. So you don't want to be caught with treble hook on your line. I made a special box just for the Wood River, or for the Williamson's River. I've never done the Wood River. Again, I'm going to be exploring a lot of these areas, and I want to see how these rivers and creeks actually fish. And since I'm learning how to fly fish, it's just one of those things I'm going to have to figure out, and go ahead and do that. All right, so we're going to take a break here, and then we're going to go into what the biologist said about the dam removals, and where to fish on the Klamath when it opens up, and what their counts are thus far. You might not be surprised, you might be surprised. So stay tuned, and please support community radio and this station. And hey, how about Terrible at Fishing? See you in a few minutes.
Out in the backwoods under the stars, I tune in the radio from my old car. Gold country radio on Friday night. Terrible at fishing, but it feels just right.
Want to get your business noticed? Sponsor a show on KKFO Gold Country Radio on 103.3 FM and create awareness through on-air announcements, our online stream at goldcountryradio.org, and our podcasts that live on forever. Your message reaches a broad local audience while also targeting listeners who choose to tune in to the shows they love. Plus, we promote your sponsorship across our website and social media. For more information, email goldcountryradio@gmail.com. Call 541-238-6989 or visit goldcountryradio.org. Gold Country Radio, your message heard locally and beyond.
The Terrible at Fishing Radio Show. Michael's got the secrets and now you know. Can't line your cast just fine. Gold Country Radio.
Welcome back, everybody, to Terrible at Fishing for this second portion of our show this week. Well, we've been talking a lot about cold water fishing in that first segment, and I love cold water fishing. I love warm water fishing. Later on in the summer, we're going to be topwater fishing, and that's just fun. And it's fast, it's exciting, it's visually pleasing. But this time of year, and I use the word seducing, that this time of year it's slow, it's methodical, it's got to be romantic. This is between you and that fish in the water. And you got to romance them a little bit. You've got to entice them a lot of bit. And yes, you can catch warm water fish in cold water. But I will tell you something about warm water fishing, or warm water fish in cold water. They're very, very lethargic. That means they're not real aggressive. But the bass, they're going to be coming up here pretty soon in order to lay their eggs and spawn. And they're coming up and they're very, very hungry because during the winter months, they were at the bottom of the lakes, these deep bodies, without feeding a lot. So they're coming up. They got to feed a lot in order to make up for that winter. And then they're going to be sitting on top of their beds in order to hatch their eggs and guarding their eggs. So this is an interesting thing. So in the first part, we talked about trout and salmon and how we need to seduce them. Well, this time of year, we're also going to be working the bass. And the bass this time of year are going to be hitting not hard baits, but soft baits. And we're going to be working bigger baits. Now, with the cold water fish, we're working finesse. All right? But with so I'm pulling this jig out. And with the bass, we're going to be working much, much bigger because, well, bass are hungry and they need to gorge themselves in order to set themselves up for their spawn. So usually I like, a shaky head jig. The one I've got in my hand is a black and blue 3/8 of an ounce shaky head. It's a swiveling jig, and it's a 5/0 hook, much bigger hook when we were talking earlier, which are 10s, 12s, 14s, or even 18s, because that's for trout. Now we're working a jig with a 5/0 hook, and we're going to add a soft plastic onto it. There's lots of different soft plastics we can add to this. Craws, creature baits, things like that, or even paddle tails. And we're going to go with a sort of a green pumpkin with red flakes, blue flakes. And we're going to put that onto this jig. And then we're going to just toss it out there, and we're working the bottom. We want to attach this so it's weedless. We want to skin hook it. So we're putting this on there, and then we've got a skin hook on it. We're just putting that, we're tucking the tip of that hook into the body of this bait. And we're going to drop it down, and we're going, now you could use a paddle tail, you could use a Senko, whatever you want. You know, I do like paddle tails. Also, a really good bait to use is a Ned rig. Ned rigs, we usually will skin hook that too. And we've got a mushroom headed jig, and we'll just drop that down. Now, the nice thing too about that is that we can go very, very, very finesse. And again, it gives more life to that. I also like the paddle tails in the heavier and bigger hooks because it also has really good life to it as we bounce it off the bottom. So now we've thrown this thing out there, and we're working sort of a drop-off area and a point. So if there's in your water body a point, this is as the fish come up from the bottom, these warm water fish, they're going to be traveling up onto the this drop off to a point, and they're going to feed, and they're going to dive back down. So it's very transitional for a warm water fish to work, for you to work a cold water body. So they're going to come up. They usually come up to a point, on a lake, and then dive back down. So we're going to be working this thing up onto a drop-off, up to the point, and then back down. By doing this, the fish are going to come up. They're trying to gorge themselves because they know an inversion is going to happen in a month or so. And they're trying to belly themselves up, really fatten themselves up, in order to, when they do come up, they're going to be nesting on hard surfaces in shallow water out of current. So that's where they nest. And this time of year, Shasta Lake is just awesome. Although I don't fish California anymore, but Fat Shasta Lake actually has a highway of warm water fish. And when you look at a fishing chart, a depth chart on them, you can actually see a highway. And they will come up, and there's so many points that they come up, and those are just high quality fishing on all those points. And then what ends up happening is that the warm water fish will retreat into coves and a shallow area with hard packs, usually rocks, pebbles, even wood. They'll put their eggs on, and within about 3 feet of water. I do not fish. I do not bed fish. I don't bed fish. A lot of guys do, and gals, bed fish, but I usually let them have their time. For a few weeks, they're going to be sitting on their beds. And if you do bed fish, I mean, it's hard to get them to hit, but by bed fishing, you really gotta release them, get them back onto their beds. Please do, and catch and release. I catch and release anyway, but with bed fishing, you want to be able to get them back onto their beds rather quick, and let them do their thing, because we want more bass. Also, the nice thing about hatching is that it creates food into the water. And a lot of people will say, well, match the hatch. What does that mean, match the hatch? Well, matching the hatch means that you're going to throw what the fish are feeding on. Well, I do that. But I also I make baits. This time of year I'm making baits. And my best baits in cold water or inverted water, because what ends up happening is that when lakes and water bodies invert, it clouds up the water. And it's a good time to see, obviously, where you lose clarity in the water, it gets cloudy. That's an inversion. That's what happens. Inversion is the best time to throw dark baits. It's the best time to throw a dark bait. And by throwing a darker bait, the fish are able to see profiles. Also, you can hear that knock. It's a low, deep knock. That knock is an alarm system. It's the siren. I'm just all over this analogy, right? The knocking of a bait is sort of the siren's call to the fisherman, or to the fish in this case. And we want to draw them towards us in a very seductive way. And putting a knocks, bearings inside a bait for fish is a great way to call them to the bait. And having a darker bait, it allows you to present, they are able to see it in a profile. A light bait, bright color baits in inverted water, they don't work very well because they don't see the profile. And in order to see color, okay, you need light, right? You and I, we can't see color unless there's light. In the dark, everything's black and white. In fact, it's really hard to see anything in the dark, right? But in dim lighting situations, you lose color, but you still have contrast. And that's what you have to put in the water when lakes are inverting. And I love black and blue. I mean, ask any fisherman. Black and blue baits in the spring work really, really, really well. And as I'm creating baits, I'm focusing a lot this time of year in those darker contrasting baits. So I've got color shifting, dark green baits. I've got blue on black and black on blue baits. And these are the baits I'm creating right now. If you throw jigs with worms on it, or even whether it be a Senko, a creature bait, or a Ned rig, you're going darker baits. You're going black and blues. This is the time of year to go with that. Black and blue, purple and black, things like that. That's what you want. Because we're about to see an inversion, but we also want to catch as much as we can this time of year. Remember, no matter what you're throwing, you're going to work it slow. Really, really slow. Slow and purposeful. This is a slow dance, all right? This is Lionel Richie, and you're just working the slow dance. But as soon as they hit, you've got to get ready for Johnny B. Good. Chuck Berry's going to, the DJ's going to switch records, and you're going to, boom, go into, a rockin' time. That's the fun part of fishing this time of year. It just is. So, in the first segment, we talked about, cold water fish. Well, warm water fish can be caught this time of year. But you still have to go slow and methodical. You just gotta. Because those fish are going to go after bigger baits. Warm water fish are going after bigger baits. But you have to present them in a very slow, methodical way. and get ready to set the hook. This is another reason why you have to have really good hooks. You got to have sharp, sticky hooks. All right, sticky, you can tell a sticky hook by just putting your finger on it. You know, if it sticks to your finger, you got yourself a good hook. And that's what you need. A lot of times you will buy a bait and it doesn't have a very good hook. So you're going to swap the hook out for a really good hook. I use fluorocarbon leaders or fluorocarbon this time of year. And I use gamakatsu hooks. Or even beast hooks. But the 6 Cents also makes a really, really good hook. I don't know what brand hook they use, but they use a really good hook. And you want it to be really sticky, so when they hit it, you can set the hook easily. Well, I hope these pointers help you this week. But go to the lakes, you can launch your boats, and you can have a really good time out on the water for cold water fishing. You guys take care. Tight lines to all of you, and we'll see you guys out on the water, I hope.
That was Terrible at Fishing, the radio show, with fishing expert Michael Ruffino. Check out Terrible at Fishing on YouTube, and tune in next week for the next episode and more great fishing tips. Terrible at Fishing, Fridays at 7 p.m. on Gold Country Radio.